So now I'm going to texture the F16, and you really want to look at the references. And what you see is this is a really good one. Um, so it's all pretty much one solid color. There's a dark gray, there's a light gray, and in between you can see there's kind of like this light gray, just a little bit off color smudges here and there. And if I zoom in, you can kind of see just the pixels aren't all just one solid gray color. They're all kinds of different little, tiny little bit of offsets from gray for almost every single pixel. So none of the pixels are actually the same exact color. And when I look here, this one's a little bit less dirty, but it's gray. And when you zoom in here, you can kind of see that the pixel colors are indeed, they're just a little bit off gray. Some are dark gray, like these are getting kind of like lighter tan. So there's all this subsurface coloring going on, and that's what we want to mimic. So what I did is I went to cgtextures.com again. I picked some metal textures like this one. It just has it's got a little bit of contrast in it. Like I said, we'll bring the contrast down so the pixels aren't so different in contrast, so that we can get it more looking like that metal where the pixel values aren't jumping all over the place. Here's another metal one with some scratches on it. And then I use a lot of concrete textures. If you look at the concrete, they really have a lot of cool different, like here there's got some little different patterns and scratch kind of feels in it. And again, I'm going to just really low contrast that so you don't really notice those scratches as much. You just want them to be really subtle. And then here's some other concrete, like this one's a little bit more contrasty and patchy, whereas if you look at like here, you can see where like this is really dark gray and then this is all light gray, and then there's some little stuff here and there, these little patches like right here in this area. You can see a couple like tan smudges and stuff all around, and that's what I'm trying to achieve with this texture. So when I combine that, that's what it's going to do. So that's pretty much it. I'm going to download these. I'm going to get the highest resolution ones that I can. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to save. So now I'm creating a new square texture, which is 2048 by 2048. So here's my blank texture here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go one by one and patch these out. So I don't want this thing here. This is too much contrast in it. So I'm going to take this and do that. I'm going to copy that, paste it over here, and then I'm going to stretch it to 2048 by 2048. And when it does that, it's going to go off the page here. So I need to actually do Control C, Control X to cut, and then Control V, and it puts it right here. And then what I want to do is go Filters, Map. I want to make it seamless. And then go Filters, Map, Small Tiles. And, well, actually, before I do that, I'll show you kind of what I'm doing here. So let's go to G, F16. I'm going to call this F16 Diffuse. So in here I have this tile texture on here, checkerboard, and I'm going to replace this and do image open, F16 diffuse, and there you go. You can see it looks terrible. That's kind of what it's supposed to look like. And I'm going to add a lamp in here so that you can see it lit. So I'm going to do add sun. There you go. So yeah, you can see that the tiling is huge. If we go back, this is kind of the most important concept you can get out of texturing. And a lot of people don't explain it. So you can see how this is like really high noise, whereas again these are just tiny little subtle differences in gray and whatnot. So again, what I'm trying to do here is the first thing I want to do is go to Tools, Color Tools, Brightness, Contrast, and I'm going to bring the contrast down so far. Something like this. Save that, and then when I do image reload, now you see that. So it's gray, but it's also got, you can see just the little subtle differences in the texture here. Now the other thing I want to do is I want to tile this. Go to F16 to views, and I'm going to go filters, map. I already made it, well, let's see. I'll make it seamless, and then filters, map, small tiles, and that's going to tile it across the texture to give it more detail. So I'm going to tile it about, I don't know, try 4 times, and then I'm going to save that. Image reload. So there you go. Now you see just it's all really, I mean, it's in your face. You got to be really close to see the small subtle details in here, and it's really nice and high resolution. Okay. So now again, let's look at this. I really like this picture because it demonstrates what we want to get at. So we have the nice base, but again, you can see all these little scrapes and all this cool stuff. And so what I'm going to do is, there's my F16 diffuse, and then I'm going to go, so I'm done with this metal texture. I've completed what I want out of that. Let's go to my other metal concrete, and this one has some nice cool scratches and whatnot. So again, this is kind of really high contrast. These go from dark gray to light gray, so I kind of want to grab part of the texture where it's, you know, partly the same color, not a whole lot of, like here this is like a brown mud spot or something. It's too much. You'll notice that when it tiles that there's all these brown spots that look identical. So I want to just take the stuff that looks pretty much the same, copy that, go back to my F16, and there's one thing that I try to teach people a lot in art. So right now I copied a thing that is maybe like, I don't know, it's maybe like 512 by 512 pixels, and then I'm going to scale it up to 2048 by 2048. That does not mean my resolution is bigger. That does not mean that now all of a sudden because I stretched it that there's more detail. In fact, what that means is each of those pixels that I scaled up now made 4 new pixels, so it's really pixelated essentially. So in order to get rid of that pixelation, I go to filter map, make seamless, filters map, and then I go small tiles again, and I want to tile it over my entire texture. And this one I did 5 times because it was a little bit smaller. And now you can see how it's super tiled. And so I want to do tools, color tools. I want to do brightness contrast. Bring the contrast down to something like that. Again, everything is really low contrast, and when you get up to it is when you see the nice cool contrast and the scratches. But from far away you would never see a scratch on this F16. So here now I have a bunch of tiled stuff, and what I can do is, there's my base texture, which adds a little bit more extra contrast in it, and I can do grain merge. So here's that one, and then if I put the original one over it, you get that, which gives it a little bit extra detail. And I can also get rid of some of these scratches if I want by taking this this tool right here and use it as an eraser tool, and take the opacity down to like 9, and I'll scale it up. So what I'm doing is I'm just taking some of these, well, I'll do a little bit more than that, maybe like 20. So I'm taking some of these scratches out so they're not, you don't see them tiled, because you see the same scratch is going over the entire image over and over. You're going to notice that. It's too much. So I just want a few scratches here and there. I don't want to see any of the tiles. So here I'm just continually clicking here and there. I'm not holding my mouse down. I'm just clicking. And now it seems pretty good. So I'm going to actually go ahead and merge this down and then hit save. And then when I go to my F16 image, reload, there you go. So now you see look how much awesome more that looks. You can see all these tiny little pieces of white. You can't really tell until you get up there. Now you can see the scratches. So now it looks all nice, cool metal. And that's the main concept of making metal textures. I haven't seen a good tutorial on that yet, or talking about the pixel resolution when you scale it. So you need to tile it so that you get tons more pixel resolution. You know, I could take this 24 by 24 texture. I could create a new thing like this, and you know, I could take a portion of this texture that's this big, and then, you know, just because I scale it up to 2048 by 2048, okay, let me do that. Control C, Control X, Control V, and then just because I do that does not make my image have 2000 pixels. It just means that I have those 10 by 10 pixels, but they're stretched. And then you can see if I reload that image, you get this. It looks like junk. You see each and every tiny little pixel. There's no detail. And then again, so what you can do is you can filter or tile things and go, make seamless, and then filters, map, small tiles, and that's where you can get, now you actually have more detail in there. So when I save that, you'll see it'll look like a lot better. Again, it's not going to look good because it's not the original texture I had, but that looks a lot better than what I just showed you, that blurry piece of junk that had really only 4 pixels, but they were mapped over 2,000 some. So I'm going to just get rid of that layer. So here's back to our original layer here. And now I can put the cool concrete stuff in. So I'm done with this metal bear. Get rid of that. There's my F16. And then I go to my concrete. So I have 2 really cool looking ones. They have a lot of completely random stuff. So I'm going to take this one first. And let's go back to our F16 picture. You can see all these kind of little cuts like this right here, this white cut through here, and a couple different scattered things. I think this texture right here, we're going to lightly apply it. This one, we're going to apply it. We're just going to Control C to copy the whole thing. I'm going to get cancel. Let's just minimize that. Right here, I'm going to paste it, and then I'm going to stretch it to 2048 by 2048. And now this one, we're not going to tile at all. We actually want all this nice random detail because there's all these patches, right? Let me go back to my image. See how there's a patch of like dark gray in this area, and then there's a couple dark gray gray here and then here. So that's what I'm representing with this texture. The not the small details, but the big details. And I'm gonna actually take this one and I'm gonna do grain merge again. And what I'm going to do is here I can lower the opacity on it. So here the details are just slightly coming in. Here it's way too much. So I'm going to save this and show you why this looks terrible. So if I load that image on my plane, then you get this. I mean, it's not so terrible, but it's a little bit drastic. Again, if you look at this, it's not so subtle. It's kind of just going from different grays. And you don't really see the subtleties. And here it's just, there's just so much contrast, right? You just go right from gray to black, and your eye sees that right away. And if you look here, where does your eye see? I mean, you can't really tell. It's all mixed well, but over the course of the whole body, it's definitely changing colors. So when I go here, I can get rid of that texture now. Go back to my F16, and again, I just want to go from 0, and I want to just slightly go up. And maybe something like that. So I have it on 6.5, and we'll see how that looks. Now when I reload that, you get a little bit more detail. I'm going to increase it just a tad bit more. It doesn't stick out enough for me to like it. So I think maybe like this. And I'll zoom in on this texture here. You can see now kind of there's a little bit more patches of randomness here. This is kind of like yellowed out. It's weathered down a little bit. So there you go. Now it's looking pretty cool. And then I'm going to take this one as well. It's going to add some more detail. And I'm going to go here and apply the same thing. I'm going to merge this down, be done with that. Paste this. You want to stretch it to 2048 by 2048. And then I'm going to do Control C, Control X, Control V. There it is. It's stretched to 2048. And it's on a new layer. And I can try different things like the dissolve or the multiply and see maybe if there's something that looks cooler. Like there's overlay, and I can kind of do a little bit of an overlay maybe. And then there's normal. So I could do grain merge. Maybe do something like this. I think that looks pretty cool. This will maybe be our base texture. So again, now you see the point that every single pixel is unique in here. You can't tell, I mean, every single pixel here, this one's gray, this one's like tan, this one's a little bit more gray. Every single pixel has a different story to tell. So let's just go back to my reference image and put that up over here. And you can kind of see there's patches all over. We still need to put panels in, and that's going to make it actually stand out. We need to put the cockpit in, and the missiles are going to be kind of white tipped and silver. This will be darker gray, and the tail fin will have a different color. But once we start paneling all this and whatnot, it's going to look a lot cooler. So what I'm going to do with this one is I'm actually going to tile this and go filters, map, make seamless, filters, map, small tiles, and I'm going to tile that just a few times just to get more detail for this overlay part. So let's see what the difference that makes. So there it is now, and then if I reload it with my tiled custom thing, you see it's a little bit different. But yeah, there's still quite a bit of contrast that just not favoring a whole lot here. I think there's too much. So I just want to bring it down. Again, it's all about subtleties. I can go back later and add some crazy thing. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at the colored parts here and separate them. So what I can do is I can go into edit mode here, look at my texture over here, and I can go UVs, export UV layout, and I can do F16 layout.png. Export that. And I think it's actually going to do it a little bit different from the other blenders, so this is new to me. I think it's going to do it with an alpha channel here. So if I go to that folder, I can see my PNG, and I can go ahead and pop that over here. Yep. So I'm going to grain merge this down because now those are going to be one texture. I'm done with my base texture. Then I see my layout here, and this is how my image gets mapped onto my airplane. So what I want to do is I'm going to grab that front area and figure out where that's at. So remember, I put a seam here. And I'm going to kind of see, okay, that maps to this part on the top, so that maps right here. And if you look at the image, that's the gray portion. So I want to actually make that darker. And so what I'm going to do then is I'm going to take my paintbrush. I'm going to do it all black. And I'm just going to go add a new layer. Put it right under that one, so I'll hit the down button here. So I have the top one here, and then this one's going to be the color layer right here. Scale this down. So I'm going to do it all black. I'm going to get rid So we got our base texture. Everything from here is kind of where the real work makes this plane look real and tell a story, because right now this doesn't really look like an F16 that I would see. This looks like a really junky game model. So the first thing I'm going to do is just go ahead and add in these little like sticker details or decals, sorry. So here's that. There you go. So normally you'd want to make this cockpit all glass and see-through and model the inside with the guy in it. But I'm going to go ahead and actually paint this in onto this texture here. So now I'm finishing off the panels here. So let me show you my panel layer real quick. Right, so if you go and look at something like this, you see all these little squares right here. You see a couple lines for panels here and here, on there and on the tail fin. See my square ones right here and here. So I have panels and panels grunge, and what I'm doing is under the panels layer, below it, I'm taking this brush and I have it on a jitter, which does this. You can see that it, let me zoom in a little bit closer. When you go like that, it jitters. It takes the circle and makes it look like you're jittering. So that's what I'm doing right now, is I'm just going over each and every one of my lines that I already did and going right under it and applying this jitter to give it a little bit of that edge feel to it. So now here it is, the official final image. So let me just build it up here for you to show you what exactly makes it look kind of cool. So I started with this base right here, and if I zoom in, you can see all the little ins and outs of detail in it. So just a bunch of random pixels that we built up. And you can see these scratches and little things going across. Then, bam, put this in. This was controlling the different areas that were lighter colored. So like towards the front of the airplane, we have this area that's gray, this one that's really light, and then it goes to dark. So that's what I did here. Here's some more things, like this is the engine where it's even darker, so I just made that as another layer. Right there's the cockpit that I'm using for now, which is just pure black. Here's just coloring the missiles. Then what I do is, instead of tiling like I did for the base texture, I took a smaller texture and tiled it so that there's a ton of little detail. I go for the bigger detail like this that kind of spreads out your eye to make it look more interesting, and that's what you get, is all this little scratchy kind of stuff. It's still pretty low contrast. It's only merged together at 8%. Then I took yet again another image on there, so you can see it went from there, and then I gave it a little bit of blue here. So yeah, I gave it some blue, and then I gave it some more just extra noise in it. So you have one kind of layer of noise, then you have another built-on layer of noise, so it just kind of adds up. You just keep adding to it, and it makes it look cooler and cooler. We got the symbols up here for just the regular symbols. Then I've got the wing emblems. That's the panel grudge. Let me zoom in so you can see it here. So there it is. So what I did is I built the panels up like this, and they're merged at a little bit opacity. Then what I did is I put the panel grudge, which goes right under it, and it gives it a little bit of a wear and tear on the panels. And then my very last one is this right here, which is my other panels right here. They go right here and darken the cylinders on the or the panels on the end of the airplane, so you can see those pop in and out to darken a little bit. So this is my final texture right here, and you can see my overlay of how it was unwrapped onto here as well.